welcome back. This is episode 3 of Brainwave Exchange. If you've been with us through the first 2 episodes, you should have noticed the theme that is being talked about frequently throughout the first 2 is this idea of putting your goals down in writing somewhere to try and help hold yourself accountable to those goals, and it being able to help you make progress towards them and even accomplish them in many cases. The 2 sort of foundational pieces to making this work is 1, writing it down, putting it out there. We're not the first people to come up with this concept. You may or may not have heard of things like manifesting. People talk about even just thinking about something happening makes it more likely for it to happen to you. Putting out positive energy into the world will help you pull that positive energy back out of it. So it's that same sort of concept, but this is now, we're going to write it down. We're going to make it physically there, presented into the world, and we're hoping to get something out of that. But we believe that that's not the only part to this. The second part of that is accountability. The accountability is important because you don't want to let yourself down. Once you've written it down somewhere, it's much harder for you to make the excuses as to why you shouldn't do something, or it's hard, or whatever the case may be. And this is one part of accountability that I want to touch on briefly today. That's internal accountability, the accountability to yourself. You ultimately are the one who is going to benefit from you making progress towards your goals, accomplishing your goals. And so by giving yourself a way to hold yourself accountable to those goals and track your own progress towards those goals is going to do nothing but help you. I don't know about you guys, but I hate letting myself down. If I say I'm going to do something, I want to do it. But for some of us, it gets all too easy to just think about something and then it gets caught up in all of the other things that happen in your day, in your week, in your month, and you don't have a good way of keeping yourself on track with the things that you've thought. So once we write that down somewhere, sort of like a general to-do list for your own personal progression, and then this is going to help you track those things every day, every week, every month, every year. Am I making progress towards these things? And you keep them organized, and you don't want to let yourself down. That's that internal accountability. But internal accountability is only half of the story. That's not going to get you all the way to where you want to go necessarily. The second piece of that then is external accountability. So once you've written something down, once you've put it out there into the world, I want to accomplish X, you've got your internal accountability. Now we want to make that external accountability. Tell someone you trust, tell a friend, brother, sister, spouse, mother, father, anyone. Tell them, hey, this is what I'm going to do by this time next year. And then you get that external accountability because now you don't want to let that person down either. Even if they have nothing to do with the particular goal that you're working towards, you tell your mother you want to get something done, and then you go to a family cookout. She says, oh, how's this coming along? And you don't want to say, well, it's not. You want to be able to give good progress updates. You want to say, yeah, I did X and Y and Z, and now I'm this much closer to accomplishing my goals. And there's real power in that. We showed you some of the numbers in the last episode where the percentage of things that you can complete by both writing it down and getting that accountability piece, it's huge. I think it was something like 95%. That's an incredibly large number. But we don't want to just throw numbers out at you either. We want to give you some actual examples here of this working in practice. And this episode is, in fact, going to be 2 such examples. The first is the existence of this episode at all. I wrote down a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, that I wanted to start a podcast. I had thought about it for a long time, had the desire for it, but it was just that. It was thoughts, it was desires. There was always some excuse, or it just got bumped down in my mind or forgotten about. And then I wrote it down. And that was step one. And then step two was telling someone. The person I told in this case was Anthony. Hey, I want to start a podcast. And now I have external accountability as well because I don't want to let Anthony down. And the really cool thing that happened out of all of that was that he had actually thought about wanting to create content for PQ so that he could drive some engagement, drive some interest in PQ, and try and get an idea of whether or not people are interested in using the same tools that he uses on a day-to-day basis to make progress towards his goals. And so because I had said I wanted to start a podcast, he had a desire to try and get content out. We came together and we started this podcast. And now here we are, 3 episodes in. Is it perfect? I don't think so. But what we have is a solid foundation on which to continue to build and continue to grow towards that goal that I wrote down. And writing it down, telling someone about it, and I now am 3 episodes in when just thinking about it before, I had nothing. The second example that we're going to give to you today is one of Anthony's focus areas that he wrote down on his PQ sheet was that he wanted to go and he wanted to visit Costa Rica with his family. And he has made that happen. And so we are going to go to Anthony. He is in Costa Rica right now, and he's going to talk to you about how he got there and his experience in Costa Rica. So let's bring him in. And joining us now from lovely Costa Rica, once again, Anthony, welcome back. How's the vacation?
It's wonderful. It's an amazing place here. I've never experienced anything like it before.
That's really cool. And the thing that helped you finally get here was putting this down on the focus section of your PQ life sheet that we talked about last week. So tell us about kind of how writing it down, putting it out there into the world kind of helped you finally realize this dream.
Sure, yeah. So it was cool because I have a date on my life sheet. It was dated of December 2022, and I filled out that focus tab that we showed the last episode. And in the categories of, there's like health, nutrition, lifestyle, business, career, finance, environment, that sort of thing. I wrote I wrote down everything that I could think of that I wanted in those categories in December of last year. And periodically throughout 2023, I would go back in and just see what I wrote down. And so I'm like really happy to report that of all the things that I wrote down, I've actually accomplished all except for one thing that was deemed impossible by the Guadalupe government. So there's no coming back from that one. But other than that, like I have stuff on here like by vacation property, which I just got my Airbnb up and running. I have, take a look at this shoulder issue I had, which was a prerequisite for me feeling comfortable to go swim the Ironman, which I also completed this year. My first half Ironman, excuse me. And now one of the things that I have in the lifestyle and adventure was spend a month in Costa Rica. Now I'm only here for 15 days, but I'm still going to call that a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 15 days is more than no days.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, just to answer your question, putting it down on paper meant every time I would go back and look at that focus tab, I would see here's the things that were important to me. Are they still important? Turns out they were, and I would periodically I think this might have been episode 1 where we talked about seeing opportunities and letting your brain will like not filter those out from your consciousness if it's something you remind yourself about, and it can say with like personal experience that that's definitely the case.
That's really awesome. And how many of the things on your focus sheet from December of last year were things that you had wanted to do for longer than just when you put it down on the focus sheet in December of 2022?
Most of them. Most of them. So Costa Rica was on the list for probably 2 to 3 years. The Ironman, similar, 2 to 3 years. And then before I was comfortable doing the Ironman, I was like, I gotta take care of my shoulder, make sure I'm not gonna get some stuff was sort of fresh. I was like, I wanted to be confident that I could do the thing that I had been thinking about for 3 years. And so there were some steps I needed to take before I could do the thing I actually wanted to do. So that's what we talked about, like breaking things down into smaller parts and making sure, you can tackle the small things, which will accumulate into accomplishing a big thing.
That's really awesome. You're the lived example of the things that you're trying to put out to help other people. So
That's the plan.
if you need any more example, why don't you turn the camera around and show us the view that you got? Because that
All
is some
right.
pretty cool motivation for people to get their own goals.
So hold on, let's wait for the camera. That's a active volcano. Uh, you can act. I don't know if I can. I don't can't zoom in. But what's cool from the from the balcony here is I can see the white smoke coming out the top of it. My friend was like, "If it's white smoke, it's fine. If it's black smoke, you better start running."
Wow. They give you any kind of warning if it's going to erupt? Do they have any sort of knowledge of whether or not it's going to go off, or are you just
I don't want to know the answer to that. I'm
that's
gonna be
fair.
blissfully ignorant. Yeah, we're staying at this great resort. It's got like a bunch of hot springs, and it's like uh 2 years in the making, but it was well worth the wait. Let me put it that way.
That's really good. So now that you say you've checked off everything off of your focus sheet except for something that a government determined was too risky for you, I want to circle back to that before we sign off for the day. But uh, when will you revisit focus areas? Are you going to do it in December again? And
No, so something that has been interesting. My work circumstances have changed in the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that the life sheet lets you do is document your expenses. And so I have to decide what kind of job I want next. And I can either go back and get a W-2 job. I could probably pick up some consulting. One of the things I want to do with confidence is know what my expenses are. So if I take on some of these opportunities, I'm not afraid, like, oh, I won't be able to pay my mortgage or I won't be able to feed my family. So once I get back from this trip, I'm going to go back to reality. I'm going to do a run through of my finances. I'm going to throw that into a new sheet, and that's probably when I'm going to start thinking about the next round of focus areas.
gotcha. So you recommend in any big life change event, you should go and revisit your focus areas, your life sheet, reevaluate where you are and what you think is most important.
Yeah, well said. And I would also say that like my typical cadence for this is about once a year, but it's the PQ doesn't limit you to how often you do this. So yes, I would do it anytime there's a big change in your life and you want to say like reevaluate. Hey, is this still the course I want to take?
Gotcha. So yeah, circling back now, I want a bit more information on what your last focus area was and why you were governmentally prevented from doing it.
Sure. So for the last 3-ish years, maybe four, I'm not sure. One of my former neighbors wanted to take me and my wife to go great white shark diving in Guadalupe Island, and COVID closed the first round, and then we had some medical issues for the next year, and then this is year three where the park is not issuing tourist passes to go diving there for anybody. So it's just off the table, and it is unclear whether they will reopen it again for next year or if I have to go visit some other spot.
Got it. Did they give any reason for not issuing permits this year?
No, they
No.
didn't.
They just don't want you coming.
Yeah,
It's
and it's okay. I mean, this is a pretty big adventure. I don't need two of these in a year. Actually, work out better this way.
all right. Well, Anthony, I really appreciate you joining us from Costa Rica. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but thank you for joining us and kind of showing us that putting out your goals into the world really helps you achieve them.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to hop on the call with me, JDC. We'll talk soon.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
All right, take care.
Bye. I think it's really cool that we have two lived examples of how writing something down and getting that internal and external accountability for something can help you make progress towards that goal. You might not get all the way there, it might not be perfect, but that power of accountability will help you avoid the trap of letting perfection get in the way of progress. Anthony wanted to go to Costa Rica for a month, and he's there for half of that. But that's a lot more than zero, right? And, I wanted this podcast. And like I said, I know it's not perfect, but here we are. We've got the foundation we can build on. We can now iterate on this. We can find what works. We can find what doesn't work. But it's like they say, every journey starts with a single step. And the first step is writing it down. So I encourage you all right now. Why not right now? Think about something that you want to accomplish by this time next year. Write it down. Piece of paper, note on your phone, anything. Write it down and then tell someone. Anyone. I mean, tell your pet if you want, but tell someone what it is that you want to accomplish by this time next year and then see what happens. I'm sure that you'll be able to make more progress towards that than you have before writing it down. I hope you enjoyed this episode where we really showed that we are walking the walk, not just talking the talk here. And I hope that you all stick around as we go on this journey to find out what this podcast will be. We're going to talk to interesting people. We're going to learn things, and it's going to evolve over time. And I hope that you all stick around with us and we can all experience this together. Thank you all for listening. Until next time.